All right. So we are what, 1 week in training camp or 2 weeks?
uh, 1 week.
It's been 1 week. Okay.
1 week.
I think we've learned a lot in that week. I think we can have a lot of takeaways from what we've seen in 1 week. The first few days were no pads, and then the past couple days have been pads. But um, what's one of your takeaways from what you've seen in camp? And you've been in camp.
It's been somewhat chaos. Because I was just hoping that we'd have a nice, easy camp, learn about this, learn about that, and how do we start off? Because we figured going in there was somewhat of a quarterback controversy, but it's all Watson. He hurts himself on a sled drill. And so now, boom, enter in, a quarterback controversy, which I don't think it's so much as here as the national media seems to be blowing it up from what I can tell. But I think the general thing was, why is he pushing a sled? Um, and I'm not saying it's Mike Tomlin's fault or whoever's fault, but I just feel like somebody at some point would have stepped in and said, "Oh, whoa, whoa, not him." Yeah, you can have the other guys do it because right, strength coach I mean, he could easily have done that doing like a lunge or maybe a squat or something. But and strength coaches are weird. They all have their own way, and this just didn't go his way.
And this is a new strength coach.
New strength coach, and he's a guy. Watson's a guy. He went 10 years, Joe, without missing a game. So it's not like he's coming in here as an injury-prone guy. So for him to miss time, now he did seem to be back into action today, right? So
A
yesterday,
little
day
bit.
before, yeah, well, yeah. But you know what? He was great today. He took two like regular snaps. They're both handoffs. But then he was 8 for 8 for the rest of the day on what he had to do, both long and mid-range passes. He looked pretty good. So yeah. So but Justin Fields didn't look awful, right? So when he was in there, I was surprised. I guess I didn't realize he throws a really pretty ball, maybe better than Watson down the field. I mean, he comes out of his hand really nice. It's a very tight spiral, but I can see where he struggles because if it was like a mid-range pass, right, like that first down pickup or maybe 7 to 10 yards, he hesitated a little bit. And I think I don't know if that's him. I don't know if that's learning a new system. It's kind of too early to tell. But both guys, really interesting. And then so you had that. We'll come back to a few other things. But I texted you yesterday when Roman Wilson got hurt. And one fear you had when we go back to when we talked about the draft was his size. I remember you mentioning that, and I agree. 6 foot, about a buck 80. And no matter which way you cut college football, NIL, big conferences, whatever it is, it's still a minor league version of the NFL. And now you gotta have to wonder. I know it's only 1 week, but he takes a hit like that, and it wasn't a big hit or anything, and he's out for 2 weeks, is what they're saying right now. That's what came down this afternoon. So, and the problem about it, Joe, too, is we go back to what we were saying with Allison last week, too, is I was all for the Deontay Johnson trade back in the day. I figured they had a plan B. And right now, it doesn't seem like they did. And I'm not sure what they're going to do. They brought in Tariq Black, who also is from Michigan, bigger, 6'3", about a buck 90. He'll start tomorrow. And they cut a few guys today. They cut Josiah Scott, which we thought might have a chance at cornerback. He's gone. And they cut Marquez Callaway, another wide receiver. So I think they're in a little bit of a conundrum, Joe Steele, wide receiver. But that's what I've seen today. And, of course, going along this quarterback thing, we were going okay today. We had some guest stars. My favorite thing was Jason Kidd was there. And we're Yinzers because nobody knew who the hell he was until somebody said Jason Kidd. I mean,
Pittsburgh is not an NBA town at all.
no, Troy Polamalu is here, James Harrison, Dion Figures. It's like watching ESPN people walk around, right? The mascots, and they're like, who's the guy with the kind of shaved head with Tomlin? It's Jason Kidd. Who the hell's Jason Kidd? Like, he played in the NBA.
Any other city, the guy would be idolized,
Oh
and it would be
yeah,
a huge deal.
right.
And Jason Kidd's like, I mean, Jason Gideon in Pittsburgh is like, who the
Right.
hell is that? Did he was he a safety in 2003 or something like that? Or
Oh, oh,
what this
JC
guy ever
Seymour.
do?
Yeah. So, but then you had the fight today, which I'm now seeing as I have time. It's kind of broken off on Twitter, which just, long story short, if you guys didn't see it, Roberts laid a smackdown on Justin Fields pretty good. Mason McCormick took a version to that and absolutely plowed Roberts, and then all hell broke loose.
I love it.
Me too.
Love it because this is one thing that has driven me crazy. And Trey Exix tweeted about this also a couple hours ago. When you have a teammate on the offensive side that goes down, nobody was there to help him. Ben would get sacked and nobody would be there to help him up.
Right.
Like, you sons of guns, you're the ones that screwed up, and there's a result of him getting sacked. At least help the old man up. The guy was, he was what, 38 years old, which is like, 78 in normal people years. Help the old man up. So I'm
Yeah.
glad. I'm glad they were sticking up for each other. It's like, hey, you knocked down our quarterback, fine, let's fight. I like that.
I think there's a lot. What's probably been the most fun has been the offensive line. There still is a little bit of me pulling my hair out because they still have Broderick Jones on the right side.
Ugh.
And I guess, hey, look, they know more than you and I do. I guess I don't get it. He's been here a year now. It's time for him to be where he's supposed to be. And, so that's been interesting because when he has been lined up right, the fans are kind of going nuts. They're kind of happy. The other thing has been Nate Herbig has been getting most of the snaps at center. Now Frazier he got first team reps today. It was first day. When he did, the crowd went kind of crazy. He's become kind of a fan favorite here. Obviously, anytime you have a Pitt, Morgantown, or even I guess a Penn State or Notre Dame connection, always seems those four colleges, right? Because that's kind of the Pittsburgh, college fan base, I guess. Pitt, they're happy, obviously, and well, didn't work out for Kenny Pickett, but we won't go there. But they were really when he came down today, there were a lot of people wanting his autograph and everything else. For a rookie center, but he played very well when he played today, and Nate Herbig has looked pretty good. And he even spent some time. Both the Herbig brothers actually spent some time with James Harrison, kind of today a little bit longer after everything was kind of done. They were out there a little bit later with him and kind of going over offense and what he do as linebacker, stuff like that. So that was interesting. And James Harrison looks like he can still play right now. But
He looks amazing.
Oh, he's insane. When I went over to Dino's for dinner, I felt bad about the quesadilla I was plowing down, thinking, yeah, I think he's probably like doing bench presses right now. So, Troy Fontenot has looked very, very good. He has looked spectacular. I think he's got to start, no question. Those are some of the things I've taken away. The fight, the quarterback thing. Of course, you have national media making a controversy, which I don't think exists. But, there was, I'd say, I don't know if it made it on Twitter yet today, and maybe I'm making too much of it, but I was back. But they interviewed Fields today, and he talked already about his chemistry with George Pickens. And he said something to the effect that I couldn't hear the entire quote, but something like, he's a 50-50 guy. All I got to do is get the ball in the air, and he's coming down with every time. We're going to be great. So it's kind of like, okay, like, here we go. It goes back to the game show you did last week. Maybe there is more to it than what I'm thinking. I don't know. I don't know.
It's funny. Anytime I go on a podcast that's, outside of Pittsburgh, all they hear about, because it seems like every day on ESPN they're talking about who's the quarterback controversy, and I always say there's no quarterback controversy. Well,
I
maybe
know.
there is.
I
I
don't know.
wonder if it's not a conspiracy, but I wonder if this whole thing with Russell Wilson and the calf, yeah, it sounds like they're being overly cautious But I think the reason they're being overly cautious and telling Russell Wilson, hey, take it easy for this first part of training camp, is I think they really want to take a hard look at Justin Fields. And they've gotten a good look at Justin Fields because Justin Fields has done the vast majority of the quarterback play this past week. And I think what we've learned about the dude is that what we knew going in, he is wildly inconsistent. He does things that are amazing, and he also does things that are incredibly dumb. But these past couple days, these past couple practices, it looks like he's improving and he's learning, and that's very interesting.
I think so. I think he's kind of relishing where he's at because it seems like it's a fan base that wants him. Um, it's hard to tell with the locker room. Who knows? I mean, you can only go on what you hear. But like I said, I thought that was interesting today because in that interview, I was almost to me like he was kind of advocating for himself a little bit, right? Saying because I mean, I know again, I apologize for not getting the end of the quote, but I know he started out with saying he will give George Pickens the opportunity to make plays. So to me, it's like, okay, well, I'm sure Watson feels the same way too, but so I just kind of find it's kind of interesting. And yeah, and I mean, the fans kind of cheered both ways. Yeah, there was a guy. I was cracking me up. There's a guy like, look at the size of their hands. It's great. I was like, oh God, no, no,
We
don't,
got quarterbacks with big hands. Oh my
don't,
God.
don't go there. Yeah, we're winning the Super Bowl. Yep, yep.
Um,
Yeah, so it's all been really interesting stuff. But Beanie Bishop has looked pretty good, I got to say. He's also had a little bit of a crowd here kind of cheering for him. So he looked pretty strong, and he's been looking pretty good. And I'm not sure if that, figured into the fact that they, let a guy go today from the cornerback position. I kind of thought, they'd give everybody. There was a lot of people thinking Josiah Scott would kind of contend for it because he has some experience. He's gone. So we'll have to see.
I think that's a big story is, I mean, because that was one of the big things going in is who's going to be that nickel, that corner, that slot corner. And Beanie Bishop, who wasn't even drafted, he is stepping up big time. He's
Yeah,
going up against George Pickens and holding his own. The
right.
dude has no fear, and I think they're literally giving him film of Mike Hilton and saying, "You be that guy. Just see
Yeah,
what that guy did. You do that." And I
yeah,
think they'd be perfectly happy if Beanie Bishop ended up like Mike Hilton, and because
yeah.
I think they were sorely missing that kind of player at that position.
Yeah, and you know what? That's a really great analogy because some other guys are saying that too. I mean, he's kind of scrappy like Hilton was too. Him and Pickens kind of got in each other's grill a little bit. I mean, it was jovial. It wasn't bad. Um, I texted to you about the fight between you know screaming match. I guess is a better term for it between Pickens and the wide receivers coach. That probably happens more than what we realize. I don't know if that's really anything to make too much out of it. Um, the only thing was, there have been some plays where it seemed like he kind of gave up a little early. I don't know what to say, but it's training camp, right? I mean, I think a lot of these guys, no matter what they tell you, get a little wary about going too all out,
Yeah.
especially if they feel like they have a position, cemented in the starting offense or defense. But so there was some of that, and I think that was the other thing too. Just looking around, like Van Jefferson. He's been actually not bad. He's caught everything thrown to him. He's looked good. So I don't know where they sit with receiver Joe. I mean, it is evident to me though Pickens is without question the best receiver on the team. I just wonder defenses are going to key on that and double team if we don't get somebody else of some ilk, unless someone makes some kind of breakthrough progress here.
That was another big issue is who's going to be wide receiver two. And as of right now, as of where we're sitting, you have Pickens as your number one guy, and then you have a bunch of candidates at number two. And we wanted to see, okay, is somebody going to step up and be that number two guy? And yes, yeah, I've heard good things about Wilson before he got hurt. I've heard good things about Jefferson. Okay, but I don't think. I think what we've learned is the answer is not on this team right now. Now, it doesn't mean they're getting Brandon Ayuk. Doesn't mean they're getting DK Metcalf or CeeDee Lamb. Sorry, folks. But that there's a tier below that, like a Lockett from Seattle. There's a Slayton from the Giants. There's that lower tier that you
Right.
could get that will cost you probably a fourth, fifth round pick or something like that. Nothing much. That I think that's going to be the answer whenever they pull that trigger. I don't know. Hopefully, the sooner the better. Hopefully they don't wait till the end of camp or something like that and pick someone up. I mean, yeah, they got lucky with Joe Hayden and that, but still, I don't know if
Yeah.
that's I don't know if that's gonna happen again. But I think that's what we've learned is the answer is not on this team right now.
Right. Calvin Austin hasn't had a bad camp, at least so far, but he's always been like that, well, except the one year he got hurt. He's always had a strong camp and then, nothing at all, um, in a regular season. And I really feel like he's pretty much got to have a great camp and produce this year. He's done. He's going on to be, age wise a little bit. You know, um, he's due. I think it's do or die for him. I think he realizes that. The one thing that does seem to be not to, grind glass in an open wound for the guy, but it does seem like the offense feels a little more confident about itself with Arthur Smith. You can tell. Arthur Smith is out there. He's doing things. He's interactive. He's kind of trash talking. You could hear him a couple times. Um, I feel like they have much more direction and the game plan's more reliable than they did with Matt Canada. You just could get that feeling. I didn't do any interviews, but it's starting to come back. And some of the reporters I did talk to they've said this. And I don't know if that'll come out later on Twitter or Facebook or something tonight or tomorrow. But some of them were you're not taking shots, just saying, we feel a little more focused. We feel like this guy knows what we are and what our identity is. So I don't know. I don't know. But you could kind of tell there was better flow. I think it was a little more organized this year for whatever reason. And there's been a lot of excitement. It's a young crowd. It kind of fired up. You saw the fight today, and it's kind of crazy like that. So we'll have to see. But I still think the wide receiver thing was still noticeable. Maybe that's just I don't know what you want to call it. Maybe we're being too judgmental too early. But Van Jefferson's probably your number two right now, and I'm not so sure Van Jefferson should be a number two.
Yeah.
Again, he's looked good, but I think on any NFL roster, he's a 3 or 4 at best.
Right.
And we're like
Exactly.
sitting at number two. And Calvin Austin has that same thing where like he's small,
Yeah.
he's fast. Some of the passes that they're doing, he's coming either on a jet or he's coming out of the slot, kind of making a cut in and cut out. And when he gets the ball, I mean, he's quite clearly one of the fastest guys on the entire team. But again, is he going to execute in game time? Is he going to do enough to warrant the roster spot this year? I'm sure he will. But yeah, I mean, that's what you're seeing, Joe. It just seems like a lot of George Pickens and everything else is like, that might work. I,
Yeah.
I don't, you know,
Yeah.
Najee
Yeah.
Harris scored twice yesterday. He's looked very good. And I think that may be our identity this year, Joe. Might be a boring as hell offense. We might go back to the old days where we're handing that ball off 30 times a game and trying to be the new Ravens with the number one rush offense in the NFL and a good defense.
Bring it. I'd be happy.
Like,
I'd be happy with 3 yards in a cloud of dust and this revolutionary concept, which I think has just been introduced to the NFL. It's called a touchdown pass. It's where you throw the ball into the end zone and your own team catches it. We haven't had that in a few years. It would be
yeah,
nice to have actually touchdowns and touchdown passes in the game. But yeah, I think we've learned what the Arthur Smith offense is going to look like. It looks like a lot of either one running back and two or three tight ends, or one running back or two running backs and two or three tight ends. I don't know, but I think the tight ends are going to get a lot of work in this offense. And yeah, I think it's going to be a heavy run offense. Um, God, I
And I don't know, it was the fact that they're bringing in Tarek Black kind of got quick news or whatever I'm going to say, quick legs today because he's big. He's actually almost closer to 6'4". And they are small. Van Jefferson's about 6 foot. Uh, Wilson's a very short 6 foot. Austin's like 5'10". I know Antonio Brown was not that tall, but still, it's like I it's been a long time since the Steelers have had like a nice big 6'4", 6'5" guy, or at least more than one of them, and that's just the thing. Pickens is 6'3", and this kid's Black's closer to 6'3". I don't think Tariq Black's going to get much whatever, but who knows? At this point, they may be saying, "To hell with it. We're going to throw everything into the pot and see what comes out."
Who
I
knows?
just don't know.
Maybe they'll have they'll have their tight ends block, and maybe they'll have their wide receivers block, and that's so
Right.
you want a big wide receiver throwing people around. I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see. Yeah, it just makes me wonder. I don't know. I salivate at the possibilities of Justin Fields. It's so exciting. And the thing he does best is not throw it. I think he's one of the best running quarterbacks ever. He's a freak as a runner. We're talking Michael Vick level, Lamar Jackson level running here. I mean, I just, even if you just have him run around all the time, there is that other option. It's like, yeah, you got Najee and Jalen Warren, but you might have to deal with Justin Fields running. I don't know. I just can't imagine a scenario where Russell Wilson is playing all 17 games and we never see Justin Fields play. I don't know. I would
Yeah, yeah.
there has to be some point you got to put him in. I don't know, even for a gadget or something. I don't know.
Yeah, and I mean, you know what's happening because I already saw it. There were people there with Cordell Stewart jerseys, so these slash things already there because they're like, I'm gonna channel slash, and yeah, I heard a guy walk by, hey man, he's gonna be the next slash. Okay, I don't think so, but you might be right. I mean,
Maybe.
he ran for 36 first down conversions last year with Chicago. Now, there's always two sides of a story, and that's that the Chicago Bears suck.
Right.
Their offensive line stunk. The game plan was horrible, but that was kind of the knocking coming in passing wise, right? So he comes in with I think, 38 turnovers in 2 years or whatever it was. And, a lot of those interceptions, it was, tight end in, tight end slant kind of things, which they do like to run, So I think that's going to be the Steelers' mantra. I think they'll go for some deep balls. We were asking for that last year, and Matt Canada either didn't know what it was, which it could be true. When they finally had some deep passes, and Kenny Pickett executed a few of them very well and some stuff there. But I think that's what they're looking for. Can he be a complete passer? Because the passes that I've seen downfield, 20 yards or more, have been spectacular. I mean, and it like you said, mentioned, I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. Michael Vick in his prime, but I mean, they are fast. They are not wobbly. They are tightrope, and they are right in there. And that's where, like, you get him and George Pickens hooking up like that. Wow. Now,
That's what I loved about him coming out of college. He threw a
yeah,
really nice ball.
yeah. But I think I always say when you see it in person, right? So it's like, yeah, I knew he threw one, but when you see it go in person, and there was one point where he kind of ran over to us a little bit on an in route or an out route, and he threw. You could actually kind of hear like you can almost hear the,
Wow.
and some players are like, oh, so. But I think it's tightening up that because I think they're going to throw for a lot of those first downs to Joe when it's like 2nd and 4 or maybe 3rd and 6. They may want to hand off to Najee, but they also might want to throw to Najee, right? Or throw to a tight end, like you're saying, utilize that tight end a lot. And I think that's the question mark is he going to be as reliable as, say, a Watson who is, say whatever you want about him, he does not turn the ball over. So, yeah.
As far as that tackling sled thing with Russell Wilson, it just drives. I, I just can't believe.
Mm-hmm.
Something tells me Russell Wilson is the kind of person to say, yeah, I'll do that. Yeah. And it's like, no, 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 you don't have to. No, 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 I want to do it. Yeah, let's go. Come on. Yeah. And because I
right?
mean, I just can't believe. I just can't believe that some coach strength and conditioning coach will say, "All right, quarterbacks, go out there and hit that tackling sled." Like,
Right, right.
doing?
Well, if our podcast was sponsored by Nugenics, here's why. Because when you turn 35, whether you're a professional athlete or you're like Joe and I, who sometimes entertain marathons and walk and run. Joe's actually an accomplished marathon guy. I am not. When I get up from this chair after this podcast, there'll probably be a little bit of ooh. No, now 10 years ago that didn't happen, but so and I guess I started thinking, Joe, like I can't imagine that Kenny Pickett or Ben or Terry
Yeah,
Bradshaw or any of these guys or John Elway were pushing tackling
right.
sleds.
I've never heard of that.
Right. I mean, strength and conditioning coaches are some of the fun coaches because they can be bat crap crazy.
Yeah,
We had a guy in high school. He's actually fairly famous. He came from Pitt. He's Buddy Morris. He's actually
heard of him.
renowned.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
We had him for a little bit because he had a relative in a nearby hospital getting treatment for leukemia at the time, so he wanted to stick close. So he got on with us for a little bit. And I remember getting to training camp, and there's like cars, and there's pylons. Like, well, what are we doing with the cars? You're gonna push the car. Like this guy's nuts, and we're like, carrying spare tires up we're going up the grandstands, running the stands instead of now we have spare tire like this. And then there's the one day there's tractor tires, and we're like, what are we doing with a tractor tire? We're flipping it. Like, holy fudge. And if you don't know anything about Metro Yinzers, tractor tires weigh a lot. Okay, I'm here to tell you. Someone
Yes.
who grew up in Yinzer country, farms. And I mean, so yeah, I mean, they always have a weird way of doing things or a different way to work this muscle group, whatever the hell. And that's why I say I'm not going to take it out on the guy because he could easily done this doing a squat or a lunge or something like
Yeah,
that. But
yeah.
I would be much more acceptable of a squat or a lunge. And it made me think, Joe, who was the guy from the Penguins like in '99? He's like one of the Czechoslovakian or Yugoslavian players. Remember, he dropped the barbell on himself. He was out for like 5 months. I forget who it was.
I
And he
don't
was a pretty good winger for us.
know.
But so at least you could say, oh well, yeah, in the gym, I've done that too, or in marathon, Joe's had some pretty tight calves afterwards. But yeah, pushing a tackling sled.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't
Yeah,
know. It's just so weird. Um, Onto the defense. I've heard a lot of good things about Dante Jackson, and that's surprising. He
yep.
didn't have a good rep coming from Carolina, and so far so good. It sounds like he is pretty well accomplished in really holding his own on that other side.
He's looked pretty good. Patrick Queen has been everything he's advertised. I think people are very um, pretty excited about him. He's fast. He's vocal. We are going to have, provided everyone stays healthy, we should have a very stout, good tackling, fast defense, which is what you need these days, right? And you talked about the Penguins a little bit. I mean, that's probably their demise is they just don't have the speed they used to, and I think that's a big reason they're not succeeding. But that's another podcast, another time. But yeah, the other guy, Grayland Arnold, has actually looked fairly good
Oh
at
yeah.
cornerback. And I don't know if maybe something happened with him prior to it, or maybe it's because they're a little short at cornerback, but he's been getting a lot of play in there with Beanie, and he's looked very good. He had an interception today. No, yesterday. So
I think
he's
he had 2 interceptions in 2 days or something like that.
yes, maybe he did. Maybe you might be right. He's actually looked pretty good, and he's been another guy. He was a guy that was hanging out with Troy Polamalu a little bit afterwards, and working with him and talking with him a little bit, and so that's the best thing about camp is when these guys who really aren't expected to do jack squat start doing jack squat, and they start moving up the depth chart. I think everybody, myself included, everyone loves an underdog, in America, and same with football. And so he's looked pretty good. So that's been fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah. I've also heard very good things from Peyton Wilson. And I
Yeah.
wonder how that whole thing is going to shake out, or is it going to be a, a a rotation between him and Landon Roberts at inside
It,
linebacker?
it
I
could
don't
be
know.
because up until he got hurt, Landon Roberts was very good last year, and he was having a good season. And he's kind of picking up where he left off, and he's kind of has this ilk of him of I still have a lot left to prove, and I didn't get to prove it last year. So he's out there almost like he's competing for his job, and he might be, right. Peyton Wilson has looked pretty good too. You want to talk about big? At first, I wasn't sure. For one day, for whatever reason, he wasn't wearing a 41. He was wearing another scrub jersey. I didn't pick up on it right away, but he's almost 6'5". He's a big guy. I
Wow.
think he's listed at 6'4". But he tips some balls, and he's very athletic and extremely quick. So
A big guy that's fast too. Wow.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, he looked he looked really good. So that's a good problem to have. They have a good problem at linebacker. There's another guy too. He wasn't on anyone's radar. That Julius. I wrote it down. How do I spell his name? Welshkoff, the edge rusher. He's actually looked pretty good too. A little bit. He looked good today and yesterday, and that's great because they need the depth. So yeah. So I would say the defense has had kind of a B, high B plus A feeling to it so far. Just from obviously they're really trying to figure out that nickel thing, Joe. They really are. But the offense still has this like kind of, I don't want to say rebuilding, but it's almost rebuilding, right? It's like we're trying to figure out which quarterback. We're trying to figure out which quarterback does what. They're learning Arthur Smith's new system, so
Yeah.
it's really interesting to see.
About the offensive line, I think and hope that it's just one of those cases of, hey, Rook, you're not handed the job. You're going to have to earn it. So hopefully that's the case with Zach Frazier and Fautanu. And I don't know. I don't know. I mean, Nate Herbig is a center. I
But he
guess, but
he he barely has enough snaps at center to even qualify for that. So it's almost like you have two rookies.
yeah,
But he has looked pretty good. And so but then Herbig looked or Frazier looked very good today. And there was a lot of, I guess, whatever Mountaineer fans or wherever he's from before West Virginia, I don't know. He had a big following today. He had a nice big following. So
interesting.
yeah, I remember this was ages ago, but I remember when Amos Zaraway was kind of that guy making way in camp, and he had a huge following. So, like I said, it's always kind of funky that it always kills me. We want to get away from the regional games in college football because I've always been an advocate. Pitt should play Penn State every year. Or my always alternative is you play, if you're Pitt, you play West Virginia to home and home. Then you take time off. You play Penn State home and home, and then whatever, go back and do that because that's fun. And I don't care, and I'm a Penn Stater through and through, but any Penn Stater tells you otherwise or tells you, oh, Pitt's not worth the time, they're full of crap.
Is
Um,
Penn State West Virginia considered a big
Oh
rivalry?
yeah, because they,
Yeah.
they play again this year. So they
Okay.
played
Okay.
at Penn State, and they open up in 1 month from today. They open up at West Virginia. Penn State does, and
Oh,
that's
interesting.
that's been a lot
Okay.
of fun because back in the day, that's what I'm saying. It was always Pitt and Penn State and Rutgers and West Virginia and Notre Dame. So I think Pittsburgh is a melting pot. I think obviously Pitt's number one. And then you have that West Virginia and Penn State and some Notre Dame influence because we have more Catholics and we know what to do with in Yinzerville. And yeah, so it's I think anytime you have any of those guys that are making way, you have a decent crowd
This
behind
is why I need to be governor or president or something like that. Because I would tackle the tough issues. I would force Penn State to play Pitt and West Virginia, and West Virginia
yes,
and Pitt to play them every year.
yes.
That should be, I mean, sorry. Pitt Penn State or Pitt West Virginia is better than Penn State Nevada or Akron or
Oh,
something like that.
yeah,
Like,
and
come on.
likewise with I always say because we used to live literally right by the airport in Moon. And every day to go to work, you're swinging out there on 376, and you'd see these team buses from like TCU and
Yeah.
Texas coming in. You're like, oh, West Virginia must be playing them because
Right.
like who
Yeah.
nobody around here is going to go. Oh my God, TCU's in town,
Listen.
or Baylor. I mean, yeah, they're respective programs. Okay, great, but no,
And you
no,
know what? West Virginia doesn't have a dang thing to do with whoever the heck is in the Big 12 or Big 8 or whatever they're calling it this week. And you know what? Pitt has nothing to do with Duke or North Carolina or Clemson or anything like that. That's a really
Right.
dumb situation too. It's just a mess. I joke that I would force him, but I think literally the governor of West Virginia told WVU you have to play Marshall every year. I
Yeah.
think that's literally a thing. And you know what? You know what? How much money do these colleges get from the states? Millions of dollars. You know what? If I'm paying you millions of dollars, I kind of have a right to tell you who to play in sports.
Yeah. No, you're not going to get any argument from me. I think if there's anyone out there that thinks otherwise, I just simply think respectfully they're wrong. And I think this kind of thing proves it, right? You follow these kids from their college careers too, and if they go to the Steelers or the Eagles, a lot of Eagles fans are happy about Saquon Barkley being there. Um, then yeah, I mean they get happy about it. I mean, why wouldn't you, right? I mean, the two biggest programs in the state are obviously Pitt and Penn State, and if a kid is very good there or has a great college career like Kenny Pickett did and Saquon Barkley did, and Zach Frazier has, and they make it to the Steelers or the Eagles, then it's even all the more sweeter, right? So yeah, it's
I
just kind of
remember,
fun to see that still going in
yeah,
2024. You
yeah.
know,
There's people coming up from West Virginia to Latrobe
right?
just to see Beanie Bishop and Zach Frazier.
Yeah, yep.
Um, I remember the hype around Amos Zaraway, and it was very funny because that was toward the end of Jerome Bettis's career, and they brought in Amos Zaraway. I think he was like a second or third round pick or something like that, and they're basically like, "Sorry, Bus, this guy's gonna take over for you. You're gonna have to take a back seat to Amos Zaraway," and Zaraway just wasn't that good, and, they had to like, "Can you be our guy again, Bus, please?"
Yeah,
And then
yeah,
they did the
yeah,
same thing with Deuce Staley. And the same,
yes,
well, Deuce Staley was actually pretty good, but I think he got hurt or something like that.
yep, yeah. Deuce was all right. Deuce was really good at catching out of the backfield, but yeah, no, Amos was only okay. He didn't turn out to be what he should have been, and yeah, yep.
Um,
So,
the important thing is, where do you eat in Latrobe? I think, as far as I know, there's only two places:
no,
Dino's and Sharky's.
there's quite a few. If you go up 30 towards Greensburg, there's actually two Dinos. So there's the Dinos in Latrobe, which is the more famous one because, like I said, Coach Carl, the special teams coach, was eating there today. And I know the one bartender there at Madison, and she said that Mike Tomlin was in twice last week. I believe it was Dino's where Antonio Brown first showed up in his Rolls Royce that was colored like whatever, I mean, so Dino's is where the hot spot. Now Sharky's is right across the street.
Okay.
It's bigger, more, but the food, I think the best food's at Dino's. So shameless plug there. And then there's another Dino's up in Greensburg, which is about 14 minutes up the road. But those, you're right, those are the two big things. There's a Touchdown Club, but I think it's a private members place. Sounds like something out of The Sopranos. But
Yeah, it really does.
the Touchdown Club, you know what I mean? Next to the bada bing.
I'll have
Um,
the gabagool.
yeah, out of the gabagool. But those are the two big places in town, and it was actually not as packed as I thought it would be at Dino's tonight. But she said that they were slammed when the practice, since they switched to mostly day practices now. Then they're slammed, and they're very tight on the curfew. So the Steelers, if anyone doesn't know, in Latrobe, bedtime here is in about another hour and a half, 2 hours. They have to be in their bunks and in their rooms, so they don't go to Dino's as much as they used to.
It's funny because if you go to Latrobe anytime between September and June, there's nobody there. There's nothing going on.
Not much.
But when there's training camp, Latrobe is the busiest place in the world, and it's I could just imagine like they probably have to like hire people just for these few weeks.
I won't say what hotel I'm staying in, but my hotel, I stay at this one a lot for work because I'm down here from work periodically. I do a lot with St. Vincent College and stuff like that. It's $100 more tonight than it is normally. it's $100
I'll bet.
more than what I normally pay.
I'll
So
bet.
that's okay. But still, it's just, yeah, yep.
You
Only for
know,
this few weeks in August, like you said. And then, yeah.
it's different this year because it used to be that every practice started at 2 o'clock. And
Hmm.
this year, during the weekdays, they start at 10:30.
Yeah.
That has to throw everything for a loop. I
Yeah.
know I've heard that the line to get into the line of cars coming in to practice, like it starts at like 6, 7 in the morning.
Hmm.
Cars for miles to get into the practice fields to watch it.
Yeah. I got lucky with this room. I travel a lot, so I'm like a diamond member. So I got in and they took care of me. But it's completely booked for tonight. Completely booked.
I'm sure.
And I'm sure hotels are not booked in Latrobe any time of the year, except for now. So, and yeah, but it is fun, folks. I mean, I'll tell you, if you haven't been out here, you really should come. It's just uh, the accessibility to players is really unparalleled. You get right there in Chucknall Field. They have the Steelers merchandise tent up top, so you can go through there, and they have everything you can find in the Steelers stores down in either Grove City or um, Station Square and in Heinz Field there. But it's really a good time. The steel drum band is everywhere. I mean, they just meander throughout the concourse and they're playing their drums, and it's a lot of fun. There's a whole big thing for your kids. There's like these giant blow up, the tents and the bounce houses and the quarterback and Steely McBeam is running around. He one year I was here and I pulled the DVE Steely and I was like, "Hey guys,"
Hey
he
guys.
didn't like that too well. I got hit with the beam, rather hard too. So I don't think he likes DVE Steely. So, but it cracks me up. So but yeah, so it's and it's like I said, it's like Sports Center. You don't know what Steeler you're going to run into because they all show up at one time or another. In the '70s, Steel Joe Green almost always is here. So is Mel Blunt. He does not live far from here. Like I said, like Deion Figures has been wandering around. Troy, James Harrison, Charlie Batch. A lot of times when you go up to the up top there where you have all the kid stuff, Charlie Batch was there last year just throwing balls to kids
Wow.
just throwing footballs at kids, like hey, and it's like, yeah, yeah.
Uh,
And I mean, he's Yins or gold, right? Steel
right.
Valley. I
Right.
mean, yeah, yeah. So
I've it is it's a must if you've never been there. It's if you're a Steelers fan, it's a must. You need to experience it at least once. And I just heard somebody say today that they've been going for a couple years, but before that they're like, why the hell would I go watch Pat Fryermuth run curl routes or something like that? What good is that? Like, no, 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 no. First of all, watching the practices in that it's almost like Field of Dreams. There's nothing around there, and then there is these fields of football heaven, and
yep,
it's amazing. But besides that, like you mentioned, for kids, there's that whole area up there. You could tackle things. It's like a big playground for kids. That's a lot of fun. There is a wonderful store up there that has a lot of unique items. They bring basically they bring the entire Steelers Pro store that's in Acrisure.
yeah,
They have that there. It's an amazing, wonderful experience, and it is so cool. And yeah, the accessibility. I remember just hanging out once and just just talking to like one of the backup offensive linemen. I think his name is Hawkins or something like that. Just shooting the breeze for a few minutes and just talking about whatever. And that's amazing.
yeah,
It was the year it was like Ryan Shazier. It was a year or two after he had his injury. And it was like nobody ever saw him walk once. And he just came out and he was like walking and hanging out with fans and stuff like that. And I'm like, oh my God. And I took a video of it. It's like, oh my God, Ryan Shazier's walking. It's such a wonderful experience. It's something if you have a chance to go experience it. It is definitely worth it. It is just so cool.
yeah, absolutely. And Latrobe's a pretty easy drive. You're right down 30, and it's great. It really is. And there are more restaurants up towards Greensburg, and there's a Permanis right up in Greensburg. So yeah, there's all kinds of fun Yinzer stuff to do and get your Yinzer on.
There's a little casino up there too in the
Yeah,
Greensburg.
it's been fun. I've been kind of keeping track of Steeler jerseys. So there's a Cordell Stewart, Donnie Shell was there today. The jersey, not the Steeler. My favorite one was I saw a Mike Tomczak and a Dwight Stone. So I mean, and the Dwight Stone one was faded yellow, and I'm thinking, whoever thought to themselves, I'm going to go buy a Dwight Stone jersey.
Yeah,
Sure, they had to have that made. It's not, believe it or not, kids, back when Joe and I were young, they didn't have these Steelers stores. They had the proverbial Steeler tossel cap and, the parkas and the stuff like that. But, yeah,
Patrick Queen is number 6.
he is.
Also,
So,
who was number 6 is Bubby Brister.
and
I
there
want to
was,
see
there
somebody have
was,
a Bubby Brister jersey, but just cross it out and put the word
duct
Queen.
tape. There were Bubby Brister jerseys. Yes. So, of course there were, so that's just, yeah, I guess when you buy the jersey, Yinzer's just like, I'm not going to throw that away. They're going to,
You
use
know,
that again.
I used to get mad when I saw people in church wearing Steelers jerseys. It's like, no,
No,
you're supposed to wear your Sunday best. That
that's the
Steelers
thing.
jersey is the most expensive article of clothing they
That's
have. You're
exactly
darn
right.
right you're bringing that to church.
It's exactly right. Yes. So,
All right. Well,
all
have
right.
fun up there. Um,
Yeah.
and I'll talk to you next week.
We'll talk to you next week, Joe. Good talk.
See you.